At my nephew's birthday party, my brother Jake stood up in front of 20 family members and announced that I would always be broke because I was too stupid to manage money properly. I calmly pulled out my phone and showed everyone the deposit notification for $480,000 from selling my tech stocks that morning. His face went completely white, and what happened next destroyed his credibility as the family's financial expert forever. Before I dive into this story of brotherly competition and the most satisfying investment vindication imaginable, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button if you've ever had family members mock your financial decisions only to be proven spectacularly wrong, and subscribe to True Revenge for more stories of investment doubters getting silenced by market success. My name is Maya, I'm 29 years old, and until my nephew's birthday party last weekend, my older brother Jake believed he was the family's investment genius while I was the financially clueless sister who would never build real wealth. This story begins with years of stock market criticism and ends with a deposit notification that proves who really understands money management. Growing up, Jake and I had completely different approaches to money and financial planning. Jake, who's 4 years older than me, always followed conventional wisdom about saving and investing. He maxed out his 401k contributions, kept substantial emergency funds in savings accounts, and invested only in blue-chip stocks and index funds that financial advisors recommended. Jake works as an accountant at a regional firm and earns about $110,000 annually. He's built what he considers a responsible, conservative investment portfolio worth approximately $180,000 after 8 years of steady contributions and market growth. Jake has always positioned himself as the family's financial expert, offering advice about budgeting, retirement planning, and investment strategies during family gatherings. The key to building wealth is consistent, conservative investing, Jake would lecture during holiday dinners. People who chase risky investments usually lose everything they've worked for. You need to think long-term about financial security, he'd advise younger family members. Steady savings and diversified portfolios are how responsible adults build wealth. Jake's approach to money was exactly what our parents had taught us: work hard, save consistently, invest conservatively, and avoid taking unnecessary financial risks. I took a very different path. After college, I got a job as a graphic designer at a small marketing agency, earning about $45,000 annually. My salary was significantly lower than Jake's, but I was fascinated by technology trends and started researching individual stocks rather than just contributing to retirement accounts. 5 years ago, I began investing small amounts in technology companies that I thought had strong growth potential. Instead of putting money into index funds like Jake recommended, I researched emerging tech firms, software companies, and startups that were developing innovative products. My initial investments were modest, $200 here, $500 there, because I was learning about stock analysis and didn't want to risk money I couldn't afford to lose. But I was strategic about choosing companies with strong leadership, innovative products, and growth potential in expanding markets. Jake's reaction to my investment strategy was immediately critical. "Maya, you're gambling with your money," he told me when I mentioned buying individual stocks. "Single company investments are incredibly risky. You should be putting that money into diversified index funds. You don't have enough financial knowledge to pick individual stocks," Jake continued. "Professional fund managers with decades of experience struggle to beat the market. What makes you think you can succeed where experts fail?" Jake's criticism of my investment choices became a recurring theme during family gatherings. He would position my stock purchases as evidence of financial irresponsibility and poor decision-making. "Maya's throwing her money away on risky stock picks," Jake would tell relatives. "She thinks she's smarter than professional investors, but she's going to lose everything." "I keep trying to educate Maya about proper investing," he'd explain to family members. "But she refuses to listen to sound financial advice." Jake's constant criticism was discouraging, especially because our parents seemed to agree with his assessment of my investment strategy. "Maybe you should listen to Jake's advice," my father would suggest diplomatically. "He has more experience with financial planning and his approach has been successful." "Jake's investment portfolio is growing steadily," my mother would point out. His conservative strategy seems much safer than buying individual stocks. But I continued researching and investing in technology companies that I believed had strong potential for growth. I read quarterly reports, followed industry trends, and made investment decisions based on company fundamentals rather than market sentiment or popular recommendations. My early stock picks performed well. Within 2 years, my small technology investments had grown significantly, generating returns that far exceeded what Jake was earning through his conservative portfolio. But I kept my investment success private, partly because I wanted to avoid Jake's skeptical commentary and partly because I was still learning about market volatility and didn't want to celebrate prematurely. When family members asked about my investments, I would give general updates without sharing specific performance numbers. "My stocks are doing okay," I'd say when Jake asked about my portfolio. "Some winners, some losers, but overall positive returns." Jake interpreted my modest responses as evidence that my investments weren't performing as well as I'd hoped. "Maya's being vague about her returns because she's probably losing money," Jake would tell our parents. Individual stock picking usually results in poor performance compared to index funds. 3 years ago, my investment strategy began generating substantial returns. Several of the technology companies I'd invested in early had grown dramatically, and my portfolio value was increasing faster than I'd expected. One software company I'd bought for $15 per share had grown to $85 per share. A renewable energy technology firm I'd invested in at $22 per share was trading at $120. A biotech startup I'd purchased at $8 per share had reached $45 after successful clinical trials. But I continued keeping my investment success private, reinvesting profits and building a larger portfolio while living modestly and avoiding lifestyle inflation. Jake's criticism of my financial choices intensified as he observed that I wasn't displaying obvious signs of investment success. "Maya's still living in the same apartment and driving the same car," Jake would point out to family members. "If her investments were really doing well, wouldn't she have more to show for it? I think Maya's embarrassed about her investment losses," he'd speculate. "She probably wishes she'd listened to my advice about conservative investing." Jake's assumptions about my investment performance were completely wrong, but I didn't correct his misconceptions because I was focused on long-term wealth building rather than short-term validation. Last year, my technology portfolio reached a value that exceeded my expectations. The combination of individual stock appreciation and reinvested dividends had created substantial wealth that I'd built while Jake was criticizing my strategy. But several of my largest positions had become overweight in my portfolio, and I was considering rebalancing by selling some holdings to diversify into other asset classes. I also wanted to use some investment profits to purchase real estate and start building wealth through property ownership in addition to stock appreciation. 2 weeks ago, I made the decision to sell a significant portion of my technology stock holdings to take profits and diversify my investments. The sale included shares in 5 companies that had performed exceptionally well over the past 3 years. Total value of the stock sale was $480,000 money that represented both my original investments and substantial capital appreciation. Timing of the sale was strategic, as several of my holdings had reached price targets I'd set when I initially purchased the shares. I wanted to lock in gains while the market was strong and redeploy the capital into real estate and other investment opportunities. The sale was processed on Friday morning, with the proceeds scheduled to be deposited into my brokerage account the same day. I received a notification on my phone confirming the $480,000 deposit while I was getting ready for my nephew Tyler's 8th birthday party. Tyler is Jake's son, and the birthday party was being held at Jake and his wife's house with about 20 family members attending, including our parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins. I was looking forward to celebrating Tyler's birthday and spending time with family, though I expected Jake might make his usual comments about financial responsibility and investment strategy during family conversations. Party was everything an 8-year-old could want: superhero decorations, pizza, games, and an elaborate cake featuring Tyler's favorite cartoon characters. Tyler was thrilled with his gifts and having all his relatives there to celebrate with him. For the first 2 hours, the party was exactly what I'd hoped for. Family members were enjoying watching Tyler open presents, playing games, and catching up with each other about work, relationships, and life updates. Jake was in his element as the host, organizing activities and making sure everyone had food and drinks. He seemed genuinely happy celebrating his son's birthday and creating memories for Tyler. But as the party continued and conversations turned to various family updates and life achievements, Jake began steering discussions toward financial topics and investment performance. "I just rebalanced my portfolio last month," Jake mentioned to our uncle during a conversation about retirement planning. "My conservative approach is really paying off with steady, predictable returns." "I've been trying to teach Tyler about money management," Jake told our grandmother. "It's important to start early with good financial habits and realistic expectations about investing." Jake's comments seemed designed to establish his credentials as the family's financial expert before making his next move. About 3 hours into the party, as guests were having cake and Tyler was playing with his new toys, Jake asked for everyone's attention. "I want to say something about financial responsibility and the importance of good decision-making," Jake announced, standing up with his coffee cup. The family gathered around, assuming Jake was going to share some general thoughts about teaching children about money or perhaps offer investment advice to younger family members. "We all want Tyler to grow up understanding how to make smart financial choices," Jake began, his tone taking on the lecturing quality I recognized from years of his investment criticism. "Some family members have been making poor financial decisions that serve as cautionary examples of what not to do," Jake continued, looking directly at me. I felt my stomach drop as I realized Jake was about to use Tyler's birthday party as a platform to publicly criticize my investment strategy. "Maya, for example, has been throwing money away on risky stock investments for years," Jake declared to the assembled family members. The room fell silent as 20 relatives turned to stare at me while Jake continued his attack on my financial judgment. "I've tried to educate Maya about proper investing, but she insists on gambling with individual stocks instead of building wealth through conservative, diversified portfolios," Jake said, warming to his topic. "Maya will always be broke because she's too stupid to manage money properly," Jake concluded. "She refuses to learn from people who actually understand finance, and she'll probably lose everything she's invested in these risky stock picks." The room was completely silent. 20 family members were staring at me while Jake stood confidently, apparently believing he delivered an important lesson about financial responsibility using me as a negative example. That's when I pulled out my phone. I had been checking my brokerage account periodically throughout the day to confirm that the stock sale proceeds had been deposited correctly. The notification was still visible on my phone screen. "Jake, since you've decided to make public claims about my financial decisions and investment performance, I think it's time to share some actual facts." I opened my banking app and found the deposit notification from that morning. "This morning, I sold a portion of my technology stock portfolio," I announced to the room. "I'd like to share the details so everyone can judge for themselves whether my investment strategy has been as unsuccessful as Jake suggests." I held up my phone so the family could see the screen clearly. "The proceeds from this morning's stock sale were $480,000, I read aloud. "These funds represent profits from technology investments I've made over the past 5 years." Gasps rippled through the room. 20 family members were staring at my phone screen while Jake's face went completely white. "The stocks I sold this morning were purchased with approximately $65,000 of my original investment," I continued. "So the capital appreciation was over $400,000 in profits." I closed my phone and looked directly at Jake. "So when you suggest that I'm too stupid to manage money properly, and that I'll always be broke, the actual investment returns suggest otherwise." The room erupted in amazed congratulations and shock. Family members began approaching me to ask about my investment strategy and express their astonishment at the sale proceeds. "Maya, I had no idea your stocks were performing so well," my uncle said. "Nearly $500,000 in profit is incredible." "How did you know which companies to invest in?" my aunt asked. "That's an amazing return on your investment." Jake stood frozen, unable to respond to the evidence that completely contradicted his years of criticism about my investment choices. Jake, you've spent years telling family members that my stock picks were gambling and that I was throwing money away, I continued. This sale represents just a portion of my portfolio, which has significantly outperformed the market returns you've been earning through conservative investments. I pulled up another screen on my phone showing my remaining portfolio balance. My total investment portfolio is now worth approximately $620,000, I announced. This includes the proceeds from today's sale plus the stocks I'm still holding for long-term growth. Jake's mouth had dropped open as he processed the revelation that my investment strategy had generated wealth that far exceeded his conservative portfolio. I kept my investment success private because I wanted to focus on building wealth rather than displaying it, I explained to the family. But since Jake chose to publicly attack my financial judgment at Tyler's birthday party, I felt obligated to share the actual performance numbers. Party atmosphere transformed immediately. Instead of Jake holding court as the family's financial expert, relatives were asking me questions about stock research, technology trends, and investment strategies. Maya, do you think I should consider buying individual stocks? My cousin asked. What made you choose technology companies specifically? My grandfather wondered. How do you research companies before investing? My brother-in-law inquired. Jake left his own son's birthday party early, claiming he had a headache and needed to rest. He gathered his things and went upstairs without speaking to me or acknowledging the investment returns I'd shared. For the rest of the evening, family members approached me to congratulate me on my investment success and express their shock at Jake's behavior. Jake's criticism of your investments was completely unfair, my mother said privately. I'm amazed that you built such substantial wealth while he was telling everyone you were making poor decisions. The drive home gave me time to process what had happened. Jake's public attack had been humiliating, but revealing my investment success had felt liberating after years of hiding my financial achievements to avoid his criticism. I realized that Jake's constant disparagement of my investment strategy had been motivated by insecurity rather than genuine concern for my financial welfare. He'd needed to believe that his conservative approach was superior to maintain his position as the family's financial expert. The stock sale proceeds hadn't just vindicated my investment choices, they'd proven that unconventional strategies could outperform traditional approaches when based on careful research and long-term thinking. I also reflected on the broader implications of the day's revelations. My investment success would likely change family dynamics and expectations about financial advice and wealth-building strategies. More importantly, I'd learned that hiding success to avoid jealousy or criticism can sometimes enable others' condescending behavior. Jake's attacks on my investment judgment had continued partly because I'd never shared evidence that contradicted his assumptions. The aftermath of Tyler's birthday party created lasting changes in family dynamics and my relationship with Jake. Jake never apologized for his public attack on my financial judgment or acknowledged that his criticism of my investment strategy had been completely wrong. Instead, he seemed to avoid family gatherings where my investment success might be discussed. Word of the $480,000 stock sale spread among our extended family, creating significant embarrassment for Jake's years of comments about my financial irresponsibility. I can't believe Jake was so wrong about Maya's investments, my grandmother said during a later family gathering. And the way he attacked her at Tyler's birthday party was terrible. Several family members approached me to apologize for not challenging Jake's dismissive comments about my investment choices over the years. I should have questioned Jake's assumptions about your stock picks, my father admitted. It was obvious you were researching your investments carefully, but I let Jake position himself as the expert on financial planning. My mother was particularly direct about the family dynamics that had enabled Jake's behavior. We all knew Jake was competitive with you about money, she said privately. But we didn't realize how much his criticism was affecting your willingness to share your achievements with us. Conversation revealed that several family members had actually noticed signs of my investment success over the years. The fact that I seemed financially comfortable despite my lower salary, that I never seemed stressed about money, that I was able to afford spontaneous purchases without checking my account balance. I remember thinking it was strange when Jake said you were losing money on stocks, my uncle mentioned. You always seemed very confident about your financial decisions and never acted like someone who was struggling with investments. But everyone had deferred to Jake's supposed expertise about financial matters, allowing his narrative about my investment failures to go unchallenged even when it contradicted their own observations. Jake's reputation within our family was seriously damaged by his birthday party attack and the subsequent revelation of my investment success. Jake always acted like he was the financial expert in the family, my cousin observed. But it turns out Maya was building much more wealth while Jake was criticizing her choices. The family dynamic shift was particularly obvious during our next holiday gathering. Instead of Jake offering investment advice to younger family members, they were asking me questions about stock research, technology trends, and wealth building strategies. Maya, do you think cryptocurrency is a good investment? My teenage cousin asked during Christmas dinner. What's your opinion on real estate versus stocks for building wealth? My brother-in-law wondered. Do you think I should start investing in individual companies? My aunt inquired. Jake's obvious discomfort with my new position as the family's investment success story was palpable. He attended gatherings but contributed minimally to conversations about money or financial planning. The most awkward moment came when my grandfather asked Jake directly about the birthday party incident. Jake, I still don't understand why you said those things about Maya's investments, Grandpa said. It was clear her strategy was working well. Why did you think she was losing money? Jake's response revealed that he still hadn't fully processed how wrong he'd been about my investment performance. I was surprised by Maya's returns, Jake said defensively. Her approach seemed so risky that I assumed she was losing money. I didn't realize her stock picks had performed so well. But she told you her investments were doing well, Grandpa pointed out. Why didn't you believe her when she said her returns were positive? Jake's inability to acknowledge that his assumptions had been based on jealousy rather than evidence showed that he still couldn't accept the extent of my investment success. 6 months later, I've used the stock sale proceeds to purchase 2 rental properties and diversify my investment portfolio beyond technology stocks. My total net worth has grown to over $800,000, including real estate, remaining stock holdings, and cash reserves. The real estate investments have been particularly satisfying, as they provide passive income while also building equity through property appreciation. I've become fascinated by real estate analysis and am considering expanding my property portfolio over the next few years. I've also started mentoring other young investors who are interested in learning about individual stock research and technology investing. Many of them have faced similar criticism from family members who favor conservative investment approaches. Working with Maya has been transformative, one mentee said. She understands the challenges of pursuing unconventional investment strategies while dealing with people who don't believe in your research abilities. The experience taught me several important lessons about investment confidence, family dynamics, and the importance of documenting financial success. First, family members who constantly criticize your investment choices may be motivated by their own insecurities about their financial performance rather than genuine concern for your welfare. Second, hiding investment success to avoid jealousy can sometimes enable others' condescending behavior and false narratives about your capabilities. Third, evidence and documentation are powerful tools for confronting false assumptions about your financial performance, especially when those assumptions are made publicly. Most importantly, the experience reinforced that successful investing often requires confidence in your own research and analysis, even when conventional wisdom suggests different approaches. Today, I'm proud of the wealth I've built through technology investing and grateful for the financial independence my unconventional strategy has provided. Jake's predictions about my financial future have been thoroughly disproven, and I've learned to trust my own judgment about investment opportunities rather than accepting others' criticism of my choices. The birthday party incident has become something of a family legend about the dangers of making assumptions about others' investment performance and the importance of supporting rather than undermining family members' financial strategies. If you've experienced family members mocking your investment choices or predicting financial failure, know that their criticism often says more about their own relationship with money and risk than about your actual potential for building wealth. Document your successes, don't hide achievements to appease others' insecurities, and remember that sometimes the most satisfying response to financial criticism is simply showing the returns that prove your strategy was right. Thank you for listening to my story of investment vindication and the stock sale proceeds that silenced family doubters. Sometimes the best response to people who say you'll always be broke is a deposit notification that proves how wealthy you've actually become.